Okay, hello, welcome back to Com 100 Rhetoric and Society. And as you might have guessed by the title screen, today we're going to talk a little bit about some repetition. And underneath, I have a fun, I don't know if it's truly fun, but a riddle that I heard many, many times growing up. Pete and repeat are sitting in a boat. Pete fell out. Who's left? You're looking for the answer. Repeat, and then you literally repeat what might count as a riddle over and over again ad nauseum to annoy whoever you're pulling this quote unquote joke on. It's great to annoy like younger folks, like toddlers and stuff. They really get a kick out of it. But repetition, even though it's a simple concept, actually has extreme importance when it comes to rhetoric, and for several different reasons. It functions in a lot of ways that are vital to the effectiveness of certain pieces of rhetoric. And we're going to explore that today. First, though, we're all familiar with the concept of repetition. Like we all sort of get it. What is repetition? Well, it's repeating something, saying the same thing more than once in a row, essentially. But it's used so ubiquitously, so all the time, that it can be easy to forget how powerful and important a tool that it is. And I know the responses sometimes I have when I tell people we're going to look at repetition today. It's like, oh, we know, and in part, we know because things are repeated to us by the people that take care of us, right? Parents are constantly repeating things. People raising us are constantly repeating things. Teachers, hello. We are constantly repeating things, especially if something's a core component to what we want to teach. We repeat it over and over and over again. Bosses, goodness gracious, repeat things to you to make sure that you as an employee understand what's going on. We get it from coaches as well that repeat the same things over and over again. People in these roles repeat things so much that we often develop impersonations and impressions of them because of how they repeat it. And our partners, the people that we're linked with romantically, have a tendency to repeat things to us, especially if it sort of gets at the core um, of who we are. But it's so much more, right, than just being goodness nagged, than just being disciplined by the repetition of things. There's a lot going on and a lot of options that we have when repetition is deployed. And if we don't understand them and appreciate them, then, like I said, this powerful tool that we have, we're essentially just ignoring, which is a shame because as we interact with repetition and understand it, it's a huge clue as to what a rhetor or what a speaker or what a writer thinks is important. It's a huge clue, and we need to use that so we can better understand the world around us. Really, I promise, it's true. For instance, when we repeat things to ourselves, we basically are cementing them in our memory, right? When you go and you study something, what do? You go back and you repeat it, you reread it, you re understand it, you go through and make sure that you've got it. And so when we repeat things, we remember them. It's a big part of our memory. And because we remember things when we repeat them, learning occurs through repetition, especially when we're young. It's repeating the same things over and over and over again, getting a decent base of knowledge such that then we can make comparisons and increase uh, our concepts as we do a good job of sort of discerning the difference between them. But learning requires repetition. That's why there's certain things in your courses you hear over and over again because it cements them as something that you know. We also tend to repeat things as emphasis. If something is important, if something's important, if something is very important, we might repeat it such that we can make sure that the focus is on that thing. And if something is repeated, we're inherently going to be paying more attention to it because it exists more than just once. So we literally have to pay attention to it more. Momentum is also created through repetition. And by momentum, I mean part of constructing a message, especially when you're writing a speech or some other written text, part of doing it well and doing it masterfully is being able to understand the internal rhythm and momentum that you build throughout the piece. And there's lots of ways you can do this. You can do it by varying up the lengths of your sentences. You can do it by the words that you use, using larger words and longer words when you want people to sort of slow down, and then quick monosyllabic words when you want them to speed up. And you can also do it by repetition. If there is an important thing, you can simply repeat it, and then the readers know and can build momentum up off of that. So it's an important tool. And here are some examples for how important repetition can be. Of course, we've got Yoda. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hatred, hatred leads to conflict, conflict leads to suffering. Hopefully, there you can see the way in which the repetition of the last idea as the first idea in the next clause is powerful. It makes us pay attention to those words. And Yoda's speaking pattern as a character is strange anyway, but when we pay attention to what's repeated and how it's repeated, it's pulling our attention to the words and concepts of anger, hatred, and conflict. So those things become important. Let's go down to Martin Luther King Jr. Again, we've talked about this speech before, but it's so definitely crafted that it's important to look at all the ways that it's great. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. We get the refrain, the repetition of now, showing the importance of the moment and the importance of what he was constructing as the mission. And then, of course, in Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, which, if you've not read, is referenced so often, it's really important that you have sort of a working knowledge of it. And we get the famous line, the horror, the repetition, right, to show the shock, the emphasis, and things like that. And so, while it may not be a marquee tactic to use rhetorically, while it's an underappreciated, undervalued tool in our toolkit, it's an important one. And if you want to bring someone's attention to a concept, to a word, or to a moment in your text, repetition is an amazing way to do it. All right. I hope you have an excellent day.